Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Devlin Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Today is an episode on caring for surrogates. This is a topic that we have not explored yet, and I'm so pleased to have Michelle Valiukenas with us. Michelle is a connection that I've made over the past few months, who really has an inspiring story, and the work that she is doing is benefiting so many families in her community and beyond. Michelle is a parent, she's a storyteller and advocate. She has 3 children, Sweet Pea, who was lost to miscarriage, her angel daughter, Colette Louise, who lived for 9 days, and her only living child, Elliot Miguel. A self-described recovering attorney. I love that, Michelle. Graduated from the University of Illinois Chicago School of Law in 2006. She's the founder and director of the Colette Louise Tisdahl Foundation, established to improve outcomes of pregnancy, childbirth, prematurity, and infancy, as well as aid grieving families through financial assistance, education, and advocacy. This is a really powerful mission, Michelle. And when we first connected, I was just instantly drawn to the work that you're doing. And I'm wondering if, to sort of begin our conversation, which of course we want to focus on the unique experiences of surrogate parents, but in your own journey of profound loss and grief, do you feel like you had the support that you needed? And potentially, is that what has drawn you to do the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first, thank you for having me. I always want to make sure. I think that, yes, absolutely. All of my experiences have informed the work I'm doing. And so, you know, having gone through and having received the message of like, right, when you want to have kids, you have sex, you get pregnant. That was always my feeling. And then when it doesn't happen that way and you're dealing with infertility, it's really mind-boggling, because I think that was the hardest thing to me to do. Was it feels like everybody else in the world can just get pregnant and I couldn't. And so dealing with infertility feels very lonely and very isolating. And so you find these other people who have gone through it, who get it, and they kind of help guide everything that you do. It's one of the reasons why I'm very open about our story. Is there's so much loneliness that we experience with infertility and then with miscarriage, with loss. And what ends up happening is that once you share that, people come out of the woodwork to say, it happened to me, it happened to me, it happened to me. And some of it was so frustrating for me, because it was like, if I had known other people went through it, maybe I would have been a little bit more prepared for it. And so that's one of the reasons why I really talk about it constantly, and just want to be an open book about things. And so that's really what I did. And in doing that, I've gotten a lot of pushback from people of like, you don't need to talk about that much, right? And it's like, no, this is part of our life. This is how our family has worked out. And so, yes, I'm going to talk about it. And yes, I'm going to share things. And this is going to be a nice part of our family that, yes, not the way we thought it would be, but that is part of our family. Specifically with the foundation, it really started with, I was hospitalized at 21 weeks pregnant, unexpectedly, and told I would be there until I delivered. And the piece that came up for me was that financially I knew we would be able to handle it. And I also recognized the extreme privilege that came with that. And so for me, I really wanted to take what we had gone through, which was a pregnancy that resulted in complication, in my case, preeclampsia, and a hospitalization. So any pregnancy where there was some sort of limitation, whether that be bed rest, weight, working hours, whatever, um, to help families in those situations, to help families who are dealing with a NICU stay like we did, and who deal with loss. And really, how can we provide some financial support to take away some of the burden that families are going through? And that was very informative of the experience I was having. And then, you know, as we tried to conceive again after loss, after we had to deal with questions like, we don't know why you got preeclampsia. And we don't really have a great strategy for future pregnancy to avoid this happening again. Um, I really struggled with this, and I had to come to terms with being so scared of what a future pregnancy would be like, emotionally, physically, that I chose to, and we ended up going a route of having a gestational carrier, a surrogate, um, who carried our son to term and did it in a way and was, much better being pregnant than I am, apparently. Um, and, that was, again, there's loss in that, right? I had to really deal with the loss of not being able to carry my son. And so that is also very informative of all the myriad of experiences that lead you to parenthood and specifically to motherhood.
Oh, this is so beautiful to listen to. It's so multifaceted. There's so many different unique experiences that people have, and there's also some ways that we can really find a universal thread that goes through, which enables us to develop systems and supports and um, sort of, I guess, looking ahead to what people's needs might be to make sure that people aren't slipping through the cracks. Uh, Thank you so much for sharing some of your story. It's really, I didn't know the piece of you having a surrogate for your child, and this, leads me. And I was thinking a lot about um, the unique journey of a gestational carrier and people who offer that service and it the piece of it that I hadn't thought about ahead of time before our call until you started talking about it is not only, the impact on the gestational carrier, but also the myriad of experiences and feelings and kind of processing that the parent who's not able to carry that baby is also navigating. So there's like so many layers that just
Mhm.
beyond what I had even initially thought.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's the important part. So intended parents, which is the parent who is using a surrogate to bring a child home, it's very complex. We found out that our surrogate was pregnant, and we were excited and we were thrilled. And a couple of days later, I really went into this deep depression and was saying things to my husband like, maybe we shouldn't have done this. I don't know if I can handle this. I think this was a mistake. And he's looking at me saying, but she's pregnant. How is this a mistake? How is this anything? And really having to say that my loss was I wasn't going to get to carry him. And I wasn't sure how to deal with that. Right. And one of the things that provides me a lot of comfort with Colette is I got to have 21 weeks with her, right? So it was 21 weeks of the way, most pregnant people would talk about. I got to talk to her, I got to feel her. Um, I knew, and actually I should rephrase that. I had 24 weeks with her, not 21. But it was all of that time that I had just with her, right? And so Whereas my husband could say I had 9 days with her. It's like I had 24 weeks and 9 days with her. Um, and so that for me was really a tough loss. And it was a loss that I didn't have anybody in my world who could understand it. So I had created this beautiful, community for and extended sort of family and friends of ours that had all gone through loss. And they were supportive and they were doing this, but they didn't get this piece that was so particular to me, which was not only were we dealing with a pregnancy after loss and everything that comes with that, but I was dealing with the loss of, what our right should be as a woman and, the biological right and the connection and everything else. And one of the things that really was an aid for me was one, we had an amazing surrogate who did everything she could to try to make sure we were as involved as possible. But it was also, I reached out to the agency we were working with and said, um, hey, do you guys have some help for me? And they connected me with a mom who had a baby at home, and it's very similar kind of circumstances of having dealt with loss, having gotten here, and then talking about that and that impact and that feeling of loss. And what does that look like? Um, and spent, probably 2 to 3 hours on the phone with her, just talking through all of that. And I think that that's one of the things that has really aided me is having that community, having the people who just automatically get it. So you're not explaining the emotions because they know what it's like, and that can just provide that, like, oh, so it's not just me kind of feeling. And I think that was really helpful for me. And then I did things, um, prior to COVID, because unfortunately we had a COVID baby. We went to every OB appointment. So we got to see that and we got to participate in that. Um, I purchased, there is, and I cannot think of what culture has this, but they have bells that you wear. And so you wear it long when you're pregnant, and it's supposed to provide a sound comfort for baby. And then after baby's born, you wear it as a shorter necklace. And I bought two of those, and I gave one to our surrogate who wore it low to her belly. And then I wore one as a necklace. And so for me, that was very much, that was a way to just feel like I was part of the pregnancy and I was attuned to it. And there was that sound. And so when I moved, I heard that sound, and it was, you know, being able to say that was the same sound that my baby was hearing at that same time. And I really searched for things. I got criticized for it, but I needed to do this. We announced the pregnancy probably about 7 or 8 weeks, if even that. And for me, that was really important. Yes, I knew all the things of if we lost, we were going to have to tell more people. But I needed people to be in our corner. I needed the cheerleaders, and I needed to feel like I was more connected to the pregnancy. And what's the easiest way to do that when you're not carrying the baby is to have other people around who are rooting you on, who are asking about how you're doing, and all of it. And so those were just some of the things I did to feel more connected with it. But and I did try to induce lactation because breastfeeding was really important to me. Uh, I was not able to produce much milk, but I did get my son to latch a couple of times. And for me, just that act and that bonding was so meaningful to me that I'm really glad that I did that as well.
Sounds like you really did your soul searching and also your research to find out what was possible for you
Right.
to to do during that time. When you think about more and more, I think people are hiring doulas and support people and gathering a more formal net of support during that time. When you think about that, what supports can people offer, whether we're a loving friend, whether we're a professional in the field? This is a really important and incredible opportunity to extend our services to a wider diversity of people's experience during this window of time.
Mm.
What can others do to support people going through this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I get asked this question a lot. Like, what do I do if my friend has lost a baby? What do I do with this? And, really, I think it's two things. I think it's showing up, um, being there for what they need, right? And that's going to change and evolve based on the person, based on the timing, based on the day, all of that. And really just leaning into, I'm going to follow their lead. And so it's saying, I'm here and what do you need from me now? Right. And sitting in the uncomfortable silence or sitting in the your friend is sobbing and like you are going to sit in that. Or, in cases of provider, who you're working with is really going to do this. It's also, sitting there and enjoying the joy, right? Um, there was a lot of there was a lot of huge joy in the whole process. Yes, there was absolute terror. Yes, there was so many emotions, but there was so much joy too. And so, noting that it's going to ebb and flow, those emotions, and whatever emotion it is totally valid. I think being very open to asking the questions, what is it that you really feel like you need? What is your fear? For us, one of the things that I did not want to happen was I did not want, well, two things. I did not want in labor delivery somebody coming in and asking some dumb question or saying something like, oh, so is this your first? Or, oh, you're finally a mom or anything like that. And so we had signs that a friend of mine had created, and I asked her for them that said um, this was a rainbow pregnancy. This was a pregnancy after loss, and um, please like respect it as is. And those signs were up all around, and it wasn't just for the medical staff, although that was important too. But it was also for, housekeeping who comes in and cleans. Like I didn't want any of those comments. It's, for when they deliver meals and all of that. Like I wanted people to know as soon as they were coming into our space that this was very private. This was very special for us. And I think that was really important. And I also wanted to include Colette. That was really important to me. And so we have a bear that we call our Cocoa Bear. And I found the bear a little shirt that said Big Sister. And to me, that was really special. And we had a picture of Colette up. And, I think one of the things that is still in all of these years and all of these things, one of the things that's still most meaningful to me is as our surrogate was getting ready to push, one of the nurses, and she didn't do this as a show, she just did this quietly, and I heard her. She stopped at the Cocoa Bear and said, "Are you ready to be a big sister?" Um, and that was so meaningful because I am a big sister myself. And to me, that's like, I always say that before becoming a mom, that was my most important, most treasured role. And so it had a lot of meaning behind it because you were including my daughter who wasn't there, but you were also acknowledging a role. And obviously the nurse didn't know this, but you were acknowledging a role that I had held so close to me and so that was so precious to me. You were acknowledging that and acknowledging my daughter was having that role, even though she wasn't there physically. And so I think it's just that, of really asking, do you want to have, and I've met other people who say, I don't really want the attention of that. I don't really want, this, because that's not where I'm feeling, or I'm more focused on whatever part of it. And just knowing that it's all valid, and it all means something.
It feels like there's a lot of opportunity is that we're supporting, or if we're going through something ourselves, to really be able to ask ourselves the question of how can I imagine this being most supportive? And then as a support person, being a facilitator to help that unique set of needs happen. It's, whatever we're doing in caregiving, authentic care is about meeting people where they are and taking the time to find out what that is for them.
And I think it's, asking really good questions, yes, but also stepping back and really listening. But also just stepping back and really listening to what they're saying and reading between the lines of what they're not saying. And so how do you work with that? And I think that's really just across the board is something we can be doing, like you said. But definitely in these situations, really, saying things, not making assumptions. One of the things that I absolutely hate, and as my son gets older and older, I get a little bit less of this is, oh, is this your first? Or, are there siblings at home or anything like that? Those feel very like attacking, like I have to, like I'm already on the defense. And that's not a great feeling to have when you're in care. And so one of the questions that I really like that I have liked more and more, and I have recommended this to people is to asking, you know, does enter your baby's name or baby, whatever it is, have any siblings? Because it really is just wide open and it just allows for me to decide how I want to answer it, depending on the situation. And, I shared that in a training once, and somebody in the audience said, I really love that because I have stepchildren. So they're not my deliveries or anything, but I consider them my kids. I've been in their lives, so long. And so that gives me the opportunity to include them if I so choose. And, I think that that's really important is that, we might be focusing on one thing, but we don't know who else we're potentially alienating when we make those assumptions.
How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one-on-one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session. I am curious about how your relationship with your surrogate, how that was mutually supportive for the whole process, and what did that look like for you?
Right. So we didn't know our surrogate until we started this, which is a very strange position to be in because you were trusting somebody to do the most important thing that they could do. And, I think it was really us sitting down and thinking through what we really ideally and what were our non-negotiables regarding a surrogate, and then having that conversation with the agency that was going to look for a match. And really seeing like these are the things, this is the stuff we really ideally want, and this is the stuff that is non-negotiable for us. Um, and so having those like deep thoughts, having those conversations, is really important. And then we were able to say that to our agency, and they went and really found somebody that met those. And when we met her and her partner, um, I was very upfront and, this is going to be really tough for us. And there are going to be certain periods of the pregnancy, whether that be weeks or just times of year, that are going to be particularly difficult for us. And I may need more from you at those points. And please tell me if it's too much. Um, and so knowing that, I felt like our surrogate was very attuned to what we needed and very open and really, wanted to share the experience with us. And I think that was really important. So we knew, um, she was like 2 months pregnant, 3 months maybe. And she sent us a text message and said, I had a weird pain in my hip. I've never had this before in my previous pregnancies. I don't think it's anything. It feels better now. Um, just want to let you guys know. And that was so opening for us. And, I was okay with it, but then she had a doctor's appointment coming up and I was like, can we do an ultrasound and just make sure? And so she called and we did an ultrasound and everything was fine. But it was that extra level of comfort. And we did more ultrasounds than normal because we needed those points of contact. And so I think it's also, being very like, this is going to be tough for us and really coming to those terms of this is what I need. Um, and then just communicating those and checking in and, having those difficult conversations. And so we did check in. And I did say to her at various points, please just tell me directly, like, you're annoying me. And like, I will adjust to the extent I can. And we never had those situations because I think we were so communicative and really talking about all of it throughout the whole thing that she knew we were supporting her as much as she was supporting us.
And yeah, and talk about that a little bit more too. So were there, instances where, because it's such a, you're like in this thing together, and so how does the care, obviously like she was getting excellent medical care, but beyond that, how do you feel like you were able to show up for her? And was there, like, what was that learning process like? Because I think as you go through anything in life, you discover what it is that people need in ways you might not
Right.
have. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, one of the reasons why I particularly really loved her from the get-go was she talked about how much joy she had being a mom and that she had even been told by one of her deliveries by a nurse, like, you were born to give birth because she's had such easy pregnancies and births. And that she held that to heart and really I recognized that there were people like myself that didn't get the chance to be moms or that it was much harder for them to become moms because of circumstances she didn't have to deal with. And I think that that was really powerful to me because it was saying, I get how important this is to you. And so I want you to be part of this and be part of this whole journey, even though you're not caring. And so I think that was really helpful and really powerful. We were there, we were at every appointment. Even when COVID didn't allow us, we would drive to the appointments and stay in the car outside. And then we'd get to see her always after, we definitely did, and often before the appointment, just depending on the timing of arrival. And we did that. And we were on the phone when we were able to be. Um, it's hard to be on the phone in a medical situation, especially when everybody is masked. And so their voices are a little bit more muffled than normal and the connection. But we tried to do as much as we could. And so I think that very much helped because she knew we were participating in this. So it wasn't just her doing this alone and like a detached kind of, um, I'm pregnant, but it's not my baby kind of feeling. I think she knew we were so involved. Um, and so I think that really helped as well. I think also, one thing that I think is difficult, and I will say that I found a lot of this when I tried to join intended parents, like social media groups, was there are a lot of intended parents who have very, very, very strict ideas of what their surrogates should be doing. And so, like, a common refrain would be, you know, I called my surrogate and she was going through the drive-through and getting food. And how the hell can she be doing this? Kind of thing. And for me, I was like, okay, one, they usually have kids, so doesn't necessarily mean they're eating it. And two, I could never put a restriction on her that I wouldn't put on myself, right? So can I say that I would have gone an entire pregnancy and never gone through a drive-through for something? No. Like that's not realistic in my world. And so I think that was the other thing was that she knew we were trusting her to take care of herself and our baby as well as she could. And I think that that was also really powerful. She also, I will say, on a side note, she went to our agency required surrogates to go to a support group. And she would tell us, oh my God, I love you guys, because she would hear other stories. So I think there was definitely that as well that played into it. But I think it was, we very much from the get-go said she was going to be part of decisions. And so we were not going to make decisions that she was not on board with. And so that I think was really important to her and made her part of the process, made us part of the process.
Oh, it sounds like it created an experience for everybody that enabled people to be much closer and have a much more positive experience.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think, I always say this that one of the biggest things that came out of a surrogacy, other than obviously our son came home and was healthy and all of that, was, when you're talking about growing your family, what a way to grow your family, not only through your child, but you have these extra people in your life who, have helped in getting you to that point. And I consider us very blessed that we still have contact with her, that she and her partner and their kids have come to, our son's birthday parties, and that kind of thing. That to me is really special. And when you talk about growing a family, how better to do it than by including everybody?
That is so beautiful, Michelle. I'm so curious about, the, postpartum
Right.
for surrogate. Um, like what did that look like for you all and how, what did you learn from her about what she needed and all of
Right.
that in that sacred window?
Yeah. So one of the things that was really great for the actual reason, but also just additional was she did pump for us for about I think we ended up with about 12 weeks. And so I think that that helped with a lot of her own postpartum journey. It also meant we were by nature connecting and meeting up to just transfer, the milk and everything. So I think that also helped that she was seeing our son. We would take our son with, and she was seeing our son. We would meet halfway, and she was seeing our son, on a regular basis. And I think that also helped. I know at one point she acknowledged that her kids were really a little confused by what had happened. And we had talked previously, we were going to include them. They were going to be able to be, in the hospital room afterwards and meet, um, and all of that. And that with COVID, that all went away. And so one of the things I did was I put together a photo album, essentially, a photo book for her with everything that she could take and sit down with her kids and share. Um, and I think that that was a huge impact for her kids, but also for herself to have that. And, we continue to do that from time to time. So, we'll send her a picture because it's Halloween and he looks really cute. Or just, it's been a little while and we'll send her a little picture with a note saying, this is what Elliot has done today, or, things like that. And I think that has largely helped with postpartum for her. And it's provided another way to be connected to them. Um, and like they went through an emotional thing. My husband and I kind of remark, Our surrogate's partner did not, great guy, but did not seem very emotional in the way that we would be, and just very like, um, he's more of like a guy's guy, right? And so that's what we thought. And that was everything we had gotten. And we were at one of his birthday parties, and I think we were talking to my parents about everything. And he started talking about the birth, and he got really teared up and just really moved by it. And so for us, that was an impact of like, wow, this didn't just impact our family. This impacted another family that became part of ours. And I think that that was really, um, just really real and really important, that we could see all the impact of, this one experience led to.
Yeah, so I'm blown away about the intricacies of experience for each person in both families and how that plays out in all the different ways that we can show up for people um, based on our role in their lives. And I
Mhm.
think what I'm so drawn to is the way that you have grown your work in terms of Colette Louise Tisdahl Foundation and really inclusively looking at the different ways that people become parents, the ways that they're impacted by the process, the ways that people grieve, the ways that people experience loss, regardless of what, their story looks like. Um, and how do you feel like, are you almost surprised at the way that your foundation has grown? Um, what is the impact that you see? You're in the Chicago area, but I know that your work impacts farther than just your local community. But how have you seen your foundation grow based on the ways that you've started showing up for people and raising money and giving aid in the ways that people need it?
Yeah. So we're a nationwide organization. So we've helped at least one family in all 50 states. And so, yeah, it's a huge impact. I had the biggest vision for this because I feel like I thought I knew the need. I am shocked by how much need there is. Um, and so if I'm feeling that way, I know other people around are like really blown away. Um, and so, I think it's one of the things, and we have had this feedback from families that have applied, is that's really precious to us is my husband and I are the ones reviewing applications, and we have been in all three situations, right? And it looks a little different for every family. But we know what it's like to be navigating a pregnancy that all of a sudden doesn't go the way it's supposed to be planned, right? We know what it's like to have a baby in NICU. Granted, it was only 9 days. And so, like, yeah, I don't understand somebody who is in the NICU, a year, but I understand the basics of what that is like and the toll it takes and everything else. And the roller coaster you go on doing that. We have lost, and we have lost in an early pregnancy, and we have lost a baby at 9 days old. And those are things that a lot of people, and I hear this all the time, will say, I can't even imagine. And I sort of have to say, I still can't even imagine. And so I think that impact and that personal experience is so valuable because we understand all of the different emotions, we understand all the different impacts. We can read an application, um, and understand the in-betweens that are not necessarily articulated. We can understand all that. And I think that that's really something that's powerful. And in terms of impact, we've helped over 3,100 families. That means that there are over 3,100 families and more who know a little bit about Colette and know her name. And if I thought that, she was alive, and she actually would be turning 7 later this month. Um, would she have had that kind of impact? No. It would have been different. I think we all have an impact on the world, but it would have been different. And so for me, it provides some relief of the fear that I had and still have, which is people will forget about Colette. And I think knowing that there there's way too many people who won't forget that. And that provides me a lot of comfort as well. That there are going to be people who know Colette's name and know a little bit about her story, because of the impact that we've had on families and on other professionals, and just really seeing that. And that to me is beautiful and precious, and I'm so grateful for it. Oh, yeah.
Mm. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story, for helping us to understand a little bit more about um, just the beautiful, potentially, there's so much potential for all parties to have a really meaningful and positive and well cared for experience. And I can see that um, you are really supporting others to get that as part of their story. And so we are looking forward to more conversations with you in the future, and particularly helping to bring awareness to the foundation that you've created. So we'll make sure in these show notes to have information about how folks can visit your website, learn more about the aid that's being offered, and find out how they can get involved.
Right.
Is there anything that you want to leave us with?
I think it's showing up, right? And it's being there. And when I say being there, I mean, I think really being there, not for what you think they need, but for what they need. And that's hard, right? We want to solve things. We want to have a solution. And, some of the most profound things people said to me is, I don't know what to say, or I don't have words, or something like that. Like, that's very real. That's very human. And yeah, there are no words. There are no fixes. And I think the power in admitting that goes a long way.
Mm, I feel that. I feel that. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.